Welcome back, learner. You know we love to get into the weeds here, and today is no different.
That's right.
We're diving deep into the world of retail pricing, specifically how it all works within an SAP retail system. We've got some really interesting materials originally created for SAP partners, so we're talking insider knowledge here.
Yeah, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at how retailers use SAP to strategize their pricing, run promotions, and even manage those markdowns you see in stores. It's fascinating stuff.
It is, and it all starts with understanding how a retailer determines the initial price they pay for the goods they sell.
Right. Before they can even think about marking things up or putting them on sale, they need to figure out their purchasing costs.
Exactly. And that's where we're going to start today. We're going to unpack how that price determination process happens in SAP. Then we'll look at how it's configured in the system and all the different levers a business can pull.
We'll see how prices are automatically calculated based on a bunch of different factors and how a business can fine-tune those calculations to fit their specific needs.
Sounds complicated.
It can be, yeah. But once you break it down, it's actually quite logical and really, really cool.
Okay, so where do we even begin with something like this?
Well, at the heart of it all is something called condition technique. This is kind of the engine that drives price determination in SAP retail.
Condition technique. Got it.
It might sound a bit technical, but think of it as a set of rules and tools that work together to figure out the price of something.
Okay, rules and tools. I can work with that. What kind of rules are we talking about?
So condition technique is built on 5 key elements. And these are the things you'll see over and over again when you're working with pricing in SAP. You've got your condition type, your access sequence, your calculation schema, your schema group, and your condition table.
5 elements. Okay. So these all work together to determine prices. Is that right?
Yep. And this applies both when a retailer is purchasing goods and when they're selling them.
Makes sense. But we're focusing on the purchasing side of things today, right?
That's right. We'll save the sales side for another deep dive.
Good plan. So let's imagine a very basic scenario. A retailer wants to buy, say, 10 units of a particular article from a vendor at a set price.
Okay. Pretty straightforward so far.
Right. So the vendor sends them a quote, they agree on a price, and that's that. But what if the vendor throws in a discount? Let's say they offer a bulk discount if the retailer buys more than a certain quantity.
Now things get a little more interesting.
Exactly. Now the system needs to be able to automatically recalculate the order value based on that discount.
And that's where the magic of the calculation schema comes in.
Okay, hold on. Back up for a sec. Calculation schema. What is that exactly?
Think of it like a rule book or a flow chart that the system uses to determine the final price. It tells the system, okay, here's the base price, now apply this discount, then add this surcharge, and so on.
So it lays out all the different conditions that might affect the price and tells the system how to calculate them.
Precisely.
Got it. So in our example, when that bulk discount kicks in, the calculation schema tells the system how to factor that into the final price.
Exactly. And it can handle all sorts of different pricing scenarios, not just bulk discounts. Like, what if there are additional charges for things like freight or insurance? Or what if there are special taxes or fees that need to be added on? The calculation schema can accommodate all of that.
Okay, so the calculation schema is the rule book, but how does the system know which rule book to use?
Good question. Because a retailer might have several different calculation schemas set up for different types of purchases. That's where schema determination comes in.
Schema determination, that sounds important.
It is. It's like the system is figuring out the context of the purchase so it knows which calculation schema to apply. And it does this by looking at a couple of key things: the purchasing organization and the vendor.
Okay, so the purchasing organization is basically just the department within the company that's making the purchase.
Yep, that's right. And the vendor is, of course, the company they're buying from.
Simple enough.
Now, both the purchasing organization and the vendor have something called a schema group assigned to them. Think of these groups as like categories or labels. They're used to link a purchasing organization and a vendor to a specific calculation schema.
So the system looks at the schema group for the purchasing organization, and it looks at the schema group for the vendor. And based on that combination, it knows which calculation schema to use.
Exactly. And a retailer can have different schemas set up for different types of purchases. Like you might have one schema for standard purchase orders and a different schema for stock transport orders. You know, when a company is just moving goods between its own warehouses.
Right, right. So you're telling the system, hey, when we're doing a standard purchase order, use this rule book. But when we're just moving stock between warehouses, use this other rule book.
Yep, that's the idea.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get how this all fits together. We've got our condition technique, which is made up of 5 key elements. And one of those elements, the calculation schema, acts as the rule book that the system uses to determine the price. And the system knows which rule book to use based on schema determination, which looks at the schema groups assigned to the purchasing organization and the vendor.
You got it.
Okay, so let's zoom in a bit and look inside that calculation schema. What's actually going on in there?
Well, each calculation schema is made up of a series of lines, and each line represents a different condition type.
Condition type. Remind me what that is again?
Right, it's basically defining what kind of price element we're talking about. Is it the base price? Is it a discount? Is it a surcharge? That sort of thing. Each line in the calculation schema represents one of these condition types.
Okay, so one line might say base price, another line might say bulk discount, another line might say freight surcharge.
Precisely.
Got it. So each of these condition types can have something called an access sequence assigned to it. What exactly is an access sequence?
Think of it like a search strategy for the system. It tells the system where to look for valid price agreements, which are called condition records.
Condition records. These are like the actual prices and agreements that have been negotiated, right?
That's right. So, for example, you might have a condition record that says vendor A will sell us article X at $10 per unit.
Okay, and those condition records are stored in condition tables.
Yeah, exactly. So the system uses the access sequence to search through the condition tables and find the right condition record for the specific purchase order that's being processed.
So the access sequence is telling the system, okay, we need to find the price for this article from this vendor. First, look here. If you don't find it there, look here. And if you don't find it there, look here.
Exactly. It's a step-by-step guide for the system to find the right price.
Okay, that makes sense. And those condition records can be super detailed, right? It's not just a simple price per unit.
Oh yeah, they can get pretty complex. You can have different prices for the same article depending on the vendor, the quantity ordered, even the site it's being delivered to. You can also set different validity periods for different prices. Like you might have a special promotional price that's only valid for a limited time.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that in stores, like, get this product at 20% off for the next week only.
Exactly. And SAP can handle all of that. It can even handle overlapping validity periods. Like, what if you have a regular price that's valid indefinitely, and then you get a special promotional price from a vendor that's only valid for a month? The system can manage that and make sure the correct price is applied at all times.
So if the promotional period ends, the system automatically switches back to the regular price.
That's right. It's all automated. And if a new agreement completely replaces an older one, the system will even delete the outdated record to keep things tidy.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the system is really quite clever in how it handles all these different pricing scenarios.
Okay, so we've talked about the base price and some of the different types of discounts and surcharges that can be applied. But what about things like freight costs or insurance? How do those get factored in?
Those are typically handled through what are called supplementary conditions.
Supplementary conditions.
These are basically additional conditions that are linked to the main price condition.
So they don't have their own separate calculation process?
Not usually.
Yeah.
They piggyback off of the main price condition, like the initial cost of the goods, and they often share the same validity dates.
Makes sense. So you might have a supplementary condition for freight that adds a certain percentage to the base price, or a supplementary condition for insurance that adds a flat fee.
Exactly.
Got it. And then we have general conditions. What are those all about?
These are conditions that can apply based on things like vendor sub-ranges, sites, or even freely definable condition groups. It allows for a lot of flexibility.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you have a vendor who supplies you with a range of different products. And for whatever reason, you want to apply a special discount to all the products that fall within a certain product category from that vendor.
Okay, I see.
You could set up a general condition that says, apply a 5% discount to all products in category X from vendor Y.
So it's a way to apply a condition to a broader group of products or a specific subset of a vendor's offerings.
Precisely.
Cool. I'm also curious about this distinction between header conditions and item conditions. What's the difference?
A header condition applies to the entire purchase document as a whole, like a discount that applies to the total order value. An item condition, on the other hand, applies to individual items within the order, like if you have different discounts for different products.
Okay, so header condition is for the whole order, item condition is for individual products. Makes sense. But can a condition ever be both?
It's interesting you should ask that because there are actually some condition types that can be either a header condition or an item condition, depending on how they're set up.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it depends on the specific scenario.
Yep, exactly. And then there's another type of condition called a group condition. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay, group condition. What's that all about?
So with group conditions, the system can actually look at multiple items together and determine a more advantageous price based on the total quantity or value.
So it's like a volume discount, but across multiple products.
Exactly. So let's say you have a vendor who offers a lower price per unit if you buy a certain total quantity of products from them, regardless of which specific products those are.
Okay, I'm following.
You could set up a group condition that says, if the total order quantity for all products from this vendor exceeds 100 units, apply a 10% discount to each unit.
So even if you're buying 20 units of product A, 30 units of product B, and 50 units of product C, you still qualify for the discount because the total quantity across all three products is over 100.
Precisely. It's a way to incentivize larger overall purchases from a vendor.
That's pretty smart. So we've talked about how the system automatically calculates prices based on all these different conditions. But what about situations where someone needs to manually adjust a price? Is that allowed?
Yeah, of course. There's always going to be situations where a manual adjustment is needed. But SAP allows you to set up controls around those manual adjustments.
So you can prevent people from making huge changes to prices without authorization.
Exactly. You can set upper and lower limits on how much a price can be manually adjusted.
That's a good safeguard. And finally, I'm curious about how all of this price information actually gets displayed on documents like purchase orders.
Well, that's controlled by the calculation schema as well.
So you can specify which condition types are printed on the purchase order and how they're displayed.
Yep. You have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you want to present that information.
Okay, so to recap for our learner, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've seen how the seemingly simple act of pricing a purchase order in SAP Retail is actually driven by a very sophisticated system of rules and conditions. We've looked at condition technique, calculation schemas, schema determination, condition types, access sequences, and a whole bunch of other concepts.
It's a lot to take in, but hopefully it's starting to make sense.
I think so, and it's really cool to see how all these different pieces work together to ensure that prices are calculated accurately and consistently.
Yeah, it's all about automating those complex calculations and giving businesses the flexibility to manage their pricing in a way that works for them.
Exactly. So the next time you see a price tag in a store, think about all the intricate logic that went into determining that price. There's a whole world of SAP behind the scenes working to make sure you're getting a fair deal. What other parts of the retail experience make you curious about how it all works behind the scenes?
Yeah, there's so much going on that we don't even see.
Exactly. But we're here to unpack it all for you, learner. So keep those questions coming, and we'll keep diving deep.
Until next time.
Yeah.